be painting this Night Raid style Ork Commando in slightly under 10 minutes. I'll tell you what paints you need as we go through the tutorial, but ultimately you can replace them with whichever paint you like. It's more about the technique. In black, I've used GW's Chaos Black, but you can use whatever colour you like. Now, as I'm painting this model, we're going to be using our brush to simulate the light and the way the light would hit the model. So our actual brush strokes are going to be the directional light. Okay, first coat, I am using the darkest grey I've got, which is called Dark Grey, and it's from Vallejo. You use whatever you want. Okay, so on we go with the first bit. I would like to brush a bit onto my skin to see if I've got enough on, because we are dry brushing a bit too much on there. Okay, first coat, we're going to dry brush the model literally all over. This is the ambient light hitting the model at night time. Just got a bit too much on there, doesn't matter. Okay, so all over the model. Literally every bit of the model is going to cop some of this, leaving the black, our Chaos Black, only in the recesses. Really a big fan of these new Commandos. A real step up from the old range, I think. There's been a lot of talk in the Orky world of monopose and a lot of hate for it, but actually this guy here wasn't built using the instructions. You can chop and change any of the heads you like, any of the backpacks, and to some extent the arms can be chopped and changed as well. Right, I think we've got enough paint on the model there. So that was our ambient light. I'm now going to move on to doing the light that will be hitting the model from above. Okay, so I am talking about your starlight here. So I'm going to move up a grey. In this case, neutral grey, but you can use whatever kind of mid battleship grey type colour you've got. Okay, I have not cleaned my brush in between coats. This will help me with a smoother transition. Now, this is my starlight, so this is only going to hit from above. To simulate that, I will be doing downward brush strokes only. Okay, my brush here is literally being the light coming from above and hitting the model. Okay, if I get some on the base, that's good, because we're painting the base as well, all at once. A little bit on the weapon, all around the model, coming from above. This starlight is hitting our orc. Okay, because it's starlight, the only place we're going to break our downward stroke technique is on top. We're just going to give them a bit extra on top, because that's where all the light will be hitting the model. Great stuff. There goes my starlight. Next up, we're going to put the moonlight on. So we're going to go up a grey again. So this is still a light grey. We're not on to an off-white yet. This one's called Deck Tan. Absolutely no idea why. But there we go. You can use whatever light grey you've got. You don't need to use these same colours. Pretty simple technique. Again, I'm not cleaning my brush in between. I'm just getting some of the new paint on and getting that paint off as much as possible to do my dry brush. Okay, that's enough. So now our moonlight is literally just catching the edges. Okay, a bit heavy on the arm there, but don't worry about that. We're going to correct for that later. Okay, and again a little bit more across the top, because that's where the light hits it. Okay, there we go. So now we're left with this bizarre kind of monochrome model, although he does actually look pretty cool, doesn't he? It's very dark. Right, that's our moonlight and our starlight and our ambient light. Now we're going to think about textures. First texture I'm putting on is the metallics. I'm using one colour for all the metallic, in this case, Necron Compound. You can use whatever silver you've got. Again, I'm going to dry brush it on there. So I'm going to put some on my brush, take some off my brush, check I've got the right amount on the back of my thumb there. Yeah, brilliant. Right, find the metallic areas and start slapping it on. I am not painting this chopper metal. I'm just giving it a slightly different texture to the rest of the model. Same with the one slung across his back and of course the gun. I'm actually going to reload my brush a bit for that gun there to really bring the metal out on it. Yeah, look at that. Looking good, looking good, looking good. Oh, grenades. Let's not forget the grenades. Again, a bit of a cheap method here. Just use downward strokes to simulate that light. Hitting those grenades. You've got any other metal on you? Not really. Not really. Brilliant. Right, next texture is the skin. Okay, skin always has a slightly different texture. Use any kind of translucent green you want, so a shade, an ink. In my case, I'll be using contrast, quite a dull one, militarium green. Give it a good shake. Always do that with contrasts. Load my brush up, and I can be quite heavy-handed with this, and I'm just going for all of the skin areas. This guy's got a t-shirt on, thankfully, so not too much skin to paint. Get some on there. Get some on this hand. Keep loading the brush up. Again, with the contrasts, it's one thick coat. Because we've already sort of pre-highlighted our model with our black and white, this stuff goes on like a dream, and the contrast effect is almost exaggerated by the fact that the model underneath is pre-highlighted. And it does help correct for where I made that mistake earlier and put a bit too much light grey on his bicep. Contrast will correct for that. Very forgiving, these dark paint schemes, if you make a mistake. Okay, and then I've just got back of the neck to do. Not really sure what's going on with that gas mask. Where's skin and where's not. Okay, I think I'm done. I'm going to pause the video there while this, oh wait, one finger missing, while this contrast paint dries. But that's what we're looking at so far. And we're on to the next stage. The next stage is kind of hard to explain, but we're going to add some colour and some visual interest to the model by putting a couple more almost light sources on there. And I've chosen two opposing colours to do this, and we're going to apply them from opposing angles. So the first colour I'm using is a very dark purple, and this is my kind of interesting shadow, and I'm going to fire that onto the model from 45 degrees below and to the right. And then my next colour, my bright colour, will be this red, which I'm going to fire onto the model 45 degrees from above on his left. Okay, so starting with the purple. I can't really explain why this works. I don't know the colour theory behind it, but it does. I'd love to see if some other people want to use some other colours to replicate this effect. So I'm now going to hold the model so that I'm firing my purple in from 45 degrees below, and I'm just going to dry brush it on. Just going to dry brush it on there. And it's catching all the areas we've previously coloured, but with the purple. Okay, just catching under the mask there. There's maybe a little bit too much on my brush. It's from that 45-degree angle. Sorry, my thumb's in the way for most of this tutorial. Don't have a particularly professional setup. Here we go, from below 45 degrees. Below 45 degrees. And then just to really make sure I've got it, I'm just going to stab it in there. Stab, stab, stab. Okay, so that is my purple shadow thrown onto the model. Next up, I'm going to have my red light. I need a brush for this. Now these transparent paints are great in that they won't crowd out the colour below it. They are quite hard for dry brushing because they're a very, very runny consistency. So I really want to make sure, yeah, that's fine. So coming at him from above, 45 degrees. Let's have a look. What is this going to hit? It's catching his mask, it's catching his weapon, it's catching his shoulder. I'm doing it from the front. I'm doing it from the back, from the same angle, suggesting the same light source. I don't know, maybe there's an explosion gone off. Maybe there's some kind of flying war machine up there casting this red light, and of course it's going to be catching top of his weapon as well. It's coming, it's up here somewhere, something red's going on. It's catching him right across the mask, right across the grenades. It's really getting him from that one direction. Okay, I'm going to load that brush up just a little more. And I'm going to think about the plane of his body, the sideways plane that the light's coming from. I'm going to snap down into it at my 45 degrees. Really, really, really catching him from that side. And on the red, I actually don't know if the red's enough. I'm going to now almost highlight that ever so slightly with this, an orange. Okay. Of course, I'm doing orange because it's red, but if I'd chosen that color to be green, I'd be doing yellow. If I'd chosen it to be blue, I'd be doing a lighter blue. You get the idea. You can use whatever colors you want for this. I'm going to be genuinely interested if anyone copies this method and takes the red out, and red and the purple out, and replicates it with something else. I'd love to see what that looks like. There we go. I'm just getting a bit of orange on him now. Tiny bit of orange from exactly the same angle at 45 degrees. And this transparent paint looks really good across the metals. Okay, there we go. There we go. Right, I'm calling that done. Next up, we are going to try to trick people into thinking we spent a bit more time on this model. We're going to pick a few details out and really focus on making those details look nice. I say really focus, we're going to spend seconds on it. So the lenses are a big feature of these Night Raiders paint schemes. And I'm actually going to use a couple of layers of paint on this. I'm going to put down a base coat of Bad Moon Yellow. There we go, from Game Colour there. Quite a lot on my brush because I've got quite a heavy colour to cover. Just one eye, two eyes. How to get them perfect circles straight away? I'm just using the surface tension of the paint to achieve that. Other places I could pick out if I want to. I'm not going to this time, but I could pick out any teeth that were showing. They would shine in the light. Fingernails. I could also pick out any kind of gold areas if he had chains of bullets or anything. In this case, he doesn't have those. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to let those eyes dry, and I'm going to do one more colour in a moment. Quite bright enough. I really want them to pop. So the last thing I'm going to add is a little bit of this fluorescent paint from Vallejo. It's great stuff. You can use whatever colour you want. I'm using yellow. Now, if you wanted to really emphasize these eyes, you could do a little object source lighting coming out from them. A cheap way to do that, or rather an easy trick, is to just ever so slightly dry brush away from the point of light using these fluorescent paints. Of course, I'm not going to do that because this is a speed paint job, but also it's not particularly realistic. Real night vision goggles don't throw light out the lenses, because that would be a very easy way to get yourself shot in the head. Okay, wash my brush. I think we are done. This is what our final model looks like. Not bad for under 10 minutes of painting. And of course, this style of painting lends itself to batch painting because there's not a lot of chopping and changing and washing brushes in between. So we can get a whole unit done in an evening quite easily. Yeah, and from across the table, really, the eyes are going to pop and those purple and red glows are going to come out as well. So I'd love to see if other people try this. I'd love to see their results.